Hello everybody, how's it going? Thank you to all of my members who were here at the first live stream. It was a lot of fun chatting with everybody. Super excited for the second one now. Also thank you to everybody who was doing the member replay, because that's always a good way to catch up on these, and I'll be adding timestamps for chapter markers and everything in the descriptions so you can jump through section by section. So yeah, welcome everybody. Saturday morning chill session. Got some chill music in the background too. But please say hi if you're tuned in, and let's chat in a minute. But I'm going to start jumping in on some of the shortcuts home screens that I was doing for free on Twitter earlier the other day. So let me switch here. Get a little more organized. I definitely forgot to charge, but that's okay. It's charging off my monitor. Oh, I just realized. Can you see the blue feed? That should not be happening. Okay, 1 second. Gonna have to switch. I set it on manual because last time it was messed up, so I don't know why that's passing through on the HDMI side. Sorry about that. It is on autofocus now, so I'll have to adjust that for the next time. Thanks for bearing with me. All right, I'm just gonna jump right in to some of these home screen tweets. Probably should pull this up. It refreshed on me. How are y'all doing? Hello, Amber, Daniel, Ambire. Who is that? I feel like I should know. I'm starting to get them down. Associating the usernames is always a little challenging. Okay, I think I had it in here. Man, I did this a while ago. Okay, sorry. There it is. I didn't answer some of these, so I'll be jumping in through these. And yeah, I guess I should mention too, before I get into that, I do have a bit more of an agenda this time, just so you can follow along live. I'm going to start out with the home screen improvements, and then I want to do a Q&A section, so feel free to just leave a bunch of comments while I'm going through this, asking questions about shortcuts, literally anything, and I'll start collecting them and then answer them in future streams or in some of my content too, and live. And then I want to go through some of the catalog stuff with scripting. So I've been doing it a little bit in the newsletter, but I want to just walk people through how I use the scripting stuff in a stream so that later I can basically go back and watch it and then write it all down and turn it into more succinct videos. But I've gotten through halfway through the newsletter, so we'll be building off of that. And then I want to end with the Smart Master playlist that I was talking about last time, where it'll be a live updating endless mix for every single time Apple releases a new one for you. It'll just get updated in Apple Music. Hello from Holland. Thank you for joining. Oh, I will be throwing up comments and things like that in a second, once we get to the Q&A section. Right, I'm going to set a quick timer so I don't forget about it. Just maybe do 10 minutes or so of this. And I'll basically be explaining to you how I would answer these people's home screen things. I'm going to bring this over, then also Safari, because I probably don't even need shortcuts half the time, although I will go in and show people. Here, all right, so this is Craig Willis's. He was the not too late. Because you're at the top, I'm going to answer it first. So that's always good. Let's see. I think I have a couple for Discord. Let me check on that. I'll just bring this over. Discord does donate. Let me see. I think I actually just have the one to the relay chat. I'm going to send him this one. I think it's in here. Ooh, that's a little dark. Sorry about that. Okay, why is it so dark? Sorry. Let me mess with that. This is crazy. This is way brighter in real life. Okay, sorry about this. I'm going to switch this. Make sure every part of it is good. I think I turned down the ISO. There we go. Much better. You can actually see what's going on. Steady the overhead bar. And we're good to go. Okay. I guess I haven't uploaded this one. Let me check. If anyone's watching live too, send me reply to this tweet. Why don't I'll just retweet it real quick, and then I can answer some of yours live too. That's more fun. Yeah, okay, there I do have it. Have you used Discord's donated actions to jump into specific channels? Boom. Oh, hello, Peter. You made it from Australia. Is it really 4 a.m.? That's so awesome. Definitely send me yours and I'll answer it because I don't want to leave you in the dust. Okay. Here's how to get back to my latest tweet. Ooh, Nuzzle user. I don't remember if Nuzzle has any type of shortcut stuff. This is a way to curate Twitter for like basically what people are tweeting about the most. I did find that if you follow a lot of people from the same news source, they'll just all tweet the same links. So it wasn't like always super representative, but sure. That would be an interesting one. I feel like he might like, in that case, if he is on Twitter, probably is going to like my Twitter ones. And I just put this, this used to be members only, and I've been slowly sharing some of those out to other people just because I like the, still got to share with people, not just all you. But we'll be building up some more for us later. Have you seen my Twitter collection? Let me know in the comments too if you did send me your shortcuts or your home screen. Ooh, this is a little bright still. Yeah, Daniel, definitely send your question through and I'll answer it here in a couple minutes. Totally good. Okay. Have any of you in here already sent me one? Get my own replies now. Nice, okay. Ooh, I've got some poolside ones. He's got the music stuff. Here, I'll save that one for later. That's a good one though. Oh, that's a get past on my own? Come on. Here we go. Man, you got a organize this, Adam. I've got some Notion ones coming up soon. Okay, Daniel, I see that in there, and I'll get it in a second here, in a couple minutes. How are you? I went through my phone home screen a little bit. I still haven't changed it since last time, but I've been using a lot of these different widgets in like multiple ways too. I don't want to focus on that too much. Okay. Already helped you. Some people have the nicest looking ones. These are so satisfying. Aesthetic. Craft Discord. This is somebody who listens to podcasts. I just love seeing like the Apple community influence on people's home screens in like the best ways. Everything must be in a folder. Ooh. Are you adapting app library a lot? Because I find that so nice. Except that, of course, I can't on iPad. All right, that day one was good. Ooh, somebody was mentioning day one last time, and I thought I didn't have any, but I actually do have a pretty good one. Let me show this. This daily entry one. Oh, there it is. So I like doing this. I do this with notes also. Oh man, that is very bright. Let me switch back to dark mode, see if that helps. Okay, you can see the shortcut better. I'll not cover it with my face. So the main thing that I like to do with some of these shortcuts is if you were trying to create a new entry on the fly, one of the ways that you can do for it is you basically look for an entry and a good example is I do this with notes also, but you look for the item and then basically if it does exist, just open it. Otherwise, if it doesn't exist, you create that one. So I think we'll actually use this method later in the stream for those smart playlists because it'll basically, if there's no playlist existing, it'll go looking for it and create it. Although playlists, it might not work. I'll have to see. But definitely works with notes, works with day one too. So this is a fun one. It's in the Launchpad category if any of you want to go grab that. But then it's basically just like goes in and creates it. Come on. Remember how, I don't know if any of you saw me ranting on Twitter about shortcuts bugs, but just like, what? Why? No worky. It's blurry, but it should come back in when when there's actually something on the screen. Okay, come on. Stupid camera. It's live, peeps. Okay. Hold on, I just lowered the quality now. There we go. Okay. So I got that Twitter one. Oh yeah, I was trying to show you it even working. So it'll just very simply go in and just create the node so that I can be like, hello, the stream is going great. Bugs. And then go back. When I run this again, it'll open up to the same one, which is pretty nice. It does do this little modal thing, but you can expand it into full view. So I actually have, let me show you other examples of that one. I think it's called Weekly Note. Okay, there's my timer for only doing a few home screens, but here's the same Weekly Note one. I think some of this, oh yeah, get the beginning of the week and then the end of the week, make that weekly note. I find it, try to see if it exists. If it doesn't exist, create it. Otherwise, get that note and then open it. I think I had to put this in because the variable wasn't properly being passed through or something like that. But I haven't done it this week, but bam. Sometimes I do find these more, it's like a good idea, but I haven't actually integrated it super far. Also, probably because I'm using Craft. Yeah, and good question in there from Marshall. Here, wait, let me pull up my add the comments thing. I will start doing some Q&A thing. So Daniel, I'm going to get you to yours in just a second. I'm just going to answer Marshall real quick. How are you utilizing shortcuts in Craft? So I do have a collection so far on here that's pretty straightforward. I will say Craft stuff is using sort of the, I don't know if there's really official tiers of, okay, hold on. Let me fix that focus. There we go. Focus on the charger. There we go. They're using the simpler APIs where you can add information in, but they're not letting us. I think they've expressly said that they're working on more, and so maybe I'll send them more information about what I want. But I've done some clever ways of just opening into Workspace. I created a whole inbox feature, and then they added it to the app, and so it might not even be necessary to use anymore. Which is like a good example of people using shortcuts to build something that then they can repurpose back into the larger app as a full feature. These are a little spread out, but some are going for specific documents. So I created this whole, let me hide your comment, this whole menu system where I would go and find the individual document just because I knew that I had one for each of these. So that's a way if you don't want to use, I could use like ask when run here and go through every single one of my documents, but this is a way to sort of limit it down and have a big menu picker for that. Yeah, here was the inbox one. I just made a shortcut called intray, or a document that I could jump back into. If you do have multiple workspaces, I figured ask when run was easiest enough, but I'm currently mostly just using it by myself. And then they did just add a new action. So let's see. Craft. I think it was in the create doc. You can now do the title and the content, which is nice. So it was, I think it was just creating, I can't remember. I think it was creating just empty document or the document with no title. But at least just seeing them move forward on this is good. And the major thing, I didn't even clarify it when I was tweeting about it. The reason I'm excited about this isn't because of the shortcut even. That's like great. But one of the things that I like is I would do stuff like this is I want to pick up one node and then move backwards out of it and then drop it into here. Before you couldn't do that. Although I guess it is, I wish it would take the title and drop it in there. So maybe that's something I can send to them. But basically for me, it's being able to use this as an iPad. Like that kind of thing isn't really a Mac-based workflow, but if you're on the iPad, I just want to be able to pick these up and move them in between. Because you can do a lot like drop this into this one and things like that. But going back out was a little more difficult. Ooh, I think it was also creating copies originally, and now it's actually fully moving it. Yeah, there we go. Pretty nice. I do want them to be able to pull in a document, though. I'm not, theirs is a bit of a challenge because I don't know what it would do if it has a bunch of nested documents and things like this. This is all like how I do pre-production, so that's a ton of information. But Craft is so awesome. It's really cool. I am actually like half using Notion too, though, / sort of duplication. I'm using Craft for a lot of just documenting the things that I want to think about, and then Notion is kind of how I act on it. And it does kind of drive me nuts that Notion doesn't use the deep links that Craft can generate, but that's okay. They've got an API, which is a big thing. It's kind of like might replace Airtable for me, but I got to figure that out as well. It'll be a slow process if that's the case. Cool. Okay, now let me do Daniel's. Okay. I have an NFC tag near my bedroom door that switches the audio destination from my iPhone to an AirPlay 2 Sonos speaker. I was wondering if there was a way to use the single NFC tag as an automation to toggle between the two destinations. If music's playing on my phone, move it to the speaker. If it's playing on the speaker, move it to my phone. Oh yeah, check audio. What is the current audio destination? I think this is doable with Toolbox Pro. I don't think I've tried it with specifically AirPlay 2, but let's try. I'll just make a new one then. Let me just search audio. Get audio output device. Speaker. Don't need to show one run. Okay, let me see. I actually have a Sonos also, so that's a good way to test it. It still says speaker. I don't think AirPlay 2 is kind of the tricky part. Let me see, actually. Maybe there's more detail in the variable. Type. Built-in speaker. It's not getting it. Oh, I guess. Just have to turn this down so my girlfriend's down there like, why are you playing Fleetwood Mac? Nope, it's not catching it. That's a shame. This is what I would have assumed would work, but maybe, honestly, I do think AirPlay and all that is a little janky. I think this is something that Apple needs to fix. We should have a get device details and be able to get that. Get text from audio. Is audio playing? Let's see, because AirPlay stuff, sometimes it doesn't think that it's playing. True, it is playing. True. Let's try it again. Also, if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to ask and I can jump on them. Get audio output device. Lies. That's odd. So I don't think you'll be able to do it currently. That is kind of a shame. Especially, I know what you mean with even just handoff set playback destination is different than handoff, but handoff forces you to specify. And so you can't just like use the same shortcut to hand off and hand back. That's why I've created a whole series of them. So that is a good question. That is obviously something that they need to get. Oh yeah, here. I wanted to make an automation that would turn on D&D only if D&D is off, so it wouldn't mess the schedule. That one might be doable too. I guess I should just say we should check. I wonder if Do Not Disturb has a... Is there a way to detect that Do Not Disturb is on without just checking that? I mean, if you've already got the schedule, you could use a series of if actions. So like assuming, let me see. (11 p.m. to 8 a.m. is when mine is on. Ooh, I'll show you all of the one of my favorite nerdy things, Unicode 35. Type. Date format. Oh, I forgot we put this into shortcuts because this was a Unicode technical standard. These are like the little codes that you use when you're using something like date. I'll just do format date. Then doing this custom. That's what that string are, these kinds of things. Oh, it jumped me halfway down the page. Here, part 4, dates. This is the worst way to view this. Come on, what's going on? I was just there a second ago. There it is. So there's this whole table where you can come in and then look. I usually try to go in. It's like by day, weekday, period, hour. So one of the easier ways to work with hours is to convert them into 24-hour time. I think that's the right one. Because then you're just doing between 23 and 8, not like some sort of math. Let me see. Oh, I guess I don't need to be turning. So it's 9. So then we do if. This is supposed to be a number. So I'm going to just, this right here, what I'm doing is when you want to change the output of, or the result being passed into another action, you can tap on it. Look in here, this is ways to convert that one piece of data, but then you can coerce it, is the way to call it, into another type. So I want this to be represented as a number. And then now this if action knows that these are number values. So if it's greater than 8, and then we'll do another if. Actually, you know what? If it's going to be, I probably need to do the 23 first, because 23 is greater than 8, and then that wouldn't fall into this. So if it's greater than 23, or if it's, switch this into a number, if it's less than 23, then you want to wait, let me double check that. I got to check back on the question. I like manually entering the scheduled time period. That's a simple workaround. Simple, maybe or not. Would turn on D&D only if it's off. So when those are on, don't do anything. And then if it doesn't fit into these states, we want to turn on Do Not Disturb. If it's greater than 23, otherwise, if it's less than 23, nothing. I think that's it. And yeah, maybe there's a way to add in an hour thing. I don't know if you all saw, here, this is a good toggle D&D safely. I can maybe, Daniel, you should hit me up in the Slack, and I'll come back and check on that one, because that's a good one. But I want to make sure it's all good for you and everything. The other one that I had that I remember, I'm always psyched. I don't know. It's always cool when you make a shortcut and then Merlin Man's like, that's a good one. So I took this options for Do Not Disturb, and I remember going through and I'm like, what are all of the ways you could use this? Because you can have these different options. And so I was like, okay, until a time, well, I want to be able to enter the time. Oh, this isn't even, oh man. The one that I have is broken too. I remember him saying it was broken, and I tried to fix it. Oh, Jesus. Well, maybe that was why. Okay, that is fixed now. I might update that again and be like, just so you know, I might have broken it twice. But yeah, so this is like, when do you want to Do Not Disturb? Until a certain time, a bit, a while, until I leave, until the event ends, as long as I feel like. I try to just do like colloquial ways of saying it. Until a certain time, a bit, 20 minutes, a while, 2 hours, until I leave, location based. This uses the current calendar event. Anything next. This I might want to like tidy up a little bit more, because it could find random calendar events, but then, or just like as long as I feel like. So yeah, that was a fun one, especially just because it is. The part about until a certain time, or just having a bit in a while, is like, I just don't want to get disturbed for this podcast, but I don't want to think, or this stream, but I don't want to get distracted and then be like, oh God, I missed all my notifications because it was on Do Not Disturb. Nice. That's a fun one. Anyone else have any specific questions? Marshall was saying loves app library. That's good. It's always, let me just pull it up here. Okay, for a second I thought I close the whole stream. Oh yeah, and this Unicode thing, before I move on from that, it's in the shortcuts user guide, which even I should just show you all this if you haven't seen it. This is basically the documentation that I wrote for workflow. They've updated it obviously to be shortcuts and everything, but there's a whole table of contents. I believe this part's new and this part's new, and there's some organizations in here. But this is like the whole how do shortcuts work. And I feel like a lot of people just don't ever find this, and teaches you a lot about the very basics. Even in here, I think I was showing that all of this web API stuff, this is stuff that I wrote because I was like, I mean, just even understanding what an API actually meant was blowing my mind at the time. So if you're all new to it too, it's a lot of stuff. I just realized I don't know how to mute. Okay, there we go. I need to cough and I don't want to cough on stream. Okay. So Jeff has a question. Does D&D work with the screen on? Yes, when it does do that. So that's a good point. See, look right there. My friend wants to play video games. I'm going to just say I'm streaming right now, but I can after. Because I don't want him to keep messaging me. I have a shortcut system for this for when I'm doing my videos because of this exact problem. When I go to record a video, it starts popping up notifications in the middle of it. Where did I put this? Maybe I moved it onto a different... I have been moving these things around. It's not in post-production. Maybe I moved it into my streaming one. Let me see. I'll have to search. This is definitely one of the things that when you have 1,000 of them. Or no, that's called notification previews is I think it. Change notification settings. Shortcuts bugs. Come on, guys. Should I just count up the total time I spend in these streams and send it? I don't know. Instead of build Apple, that doesn't make sense. I had this going for a while where I would come in here and just turn off previews. Because then at least it would just show a little nubbin. But yeah, it is kind of annoying that you can't hide notifications while you're live streaming. So that's... Feel free to not send me text messages. I mean, not to my friends. That's just funny. Oh, yeah. Nice. Danielle's on top of it. Head settings to silence to always or while phone is locked. Is that... Yeah, that's incoming. Notifications too? Maybe. I also specifically just went in. I was doing this for a while. Just come in and just turn off the banners for this because specifically text messages. I don't want to reveal people's personal messages to me before I can even see them. But yeah, feature request to Apple. Let us actually hide notifications while we're live. Cool. All right, I think that's some pretty straightforward. If you guys do have more Q&A too, feel free to drop them in there and I will answer some more at the end. And I did have a list of all of people's questions from last time too. I want to like save push cuts and data jar stuff for later just to be able to give it the time that it deserves. But yeah, let's do some basic scripting stuff now. That is craft. So in the last 2 issues of the newsletter, open in background, I've been starting to talk about simple scripting stuff because scripting is, Your D&D is already set up, so you won't get notification banners. Yeah, fair. I don't know. It's all a mess. But with the scripting parts, we come in here to the scripting category. This is usually what gets people messed up. And I think this is a situation where I wish they had these categories sorted by like the most logical order instead of alphabetical, because that is the logic to it right now, is that it's alphabetical. So it's just apps, control flow, device, dictionaries, files, items, lists. But really, in my mind, this isn't at all how I use them. Apps, I'm so glad they put apps at the top, because that was perfect for all the add to home screen people. But I do think some of the simplest ones are these device, network, and notifications ones. So like if you're trying to learn scripting, just skip this section to start, because this is the powerful stuff, but it's too powerful if you've never even tried it before. A lot of times, at least from the whole like Android world and what people say they want, is the ability to control all of these different little features, which is great. It's all, but to me, that's like device control versus scripting are part of it's programming, part of it's just like technical stuff. So it seems a little confusing to have these in the both same section, but these are really nice to use too. All of the set ones are just toggles of different types. I guess low power mode doesn't work on iPad. Set wallpaper, yeah, super glad that that's been in here. The trickier ones are the get battery level and get device details, because you end up having to pass that information into the next section. It's not just a standalone thing. But I think one thing that I've always thought was funny, and I don't know why, is just setting the battery level to the brightness. And here's a good thing just for shortcuts overall. Tapping and holding on variables is where you get this option to either select from previous variables using the magic variable system, have it just ask you each time what you want to do, or to grab it from the shortcut input. Sometimes some stuff is hidden behind that tap and hold, so definitely make sure to check that out. But then you go up to battery level, and then it's just like, okay, I'm at 50%, 50% brightness. Oh, wait, okay. Why is it doing that? Okay, 50, I guess we have to do some math first. Well, let's skip ahead. I didn't want to talk about these. See, even just using two of the simplest ones, suddenly you have to know to do some math and things like that. That's not the best, but get the battery level. Come on. Divided by 100. And I'll clarify too. Part of it shows it in here, but if you set the brightness using a variable, use a number between 0 and 1, for example, 0.5 for half the brightness. So wait, let me just show you. Now it says 0.51, I guess, but now you can't see anything. Oh, and it just did not do the right level at all. Did we just uncover another bug? Come on, shortcuts. That's just totally wrong. Did you see that? Yep. Okay. Well, another one to report there. So those are at least the device ones are pretty straightforward. You can set all of those variables, or you can use other actions to programmatically set the options. Then I figured going on to the network ones are the same type of thing, where you can control these three main ones that people want, but then you can also do the same type of advanced stuff where like we will have to go back into the if action, but it's basically if you are on your home network, you could do something, and if you're not on your home network, maybe it saves it for later instead of downloading the whole file right now. That's a pretty awesome one. IP address too, you can be more specific. I don't actually use that much though. And then the notification actions, I think these are the ones that are super important too, because this is how you just understand that something happened when you run a shortcut. And except for ask for input, feels a little out of place there, but you can have it play a sound, show a pop-up in line as you're running the shortcut. One of the nice things there is cancel will stop the shortcut, so that's super helpful. I just see right now Amber saying would love to learn any tips and tricks for debugging a shortcut. Show alert is a really good way because you saw before how I was going in and just deleting them and seeing what happened at the bottom. If you put the content of the previous variable into show alert, you can see at that step what value is being generated, and then you can cancel it. So like a big thing is if you have a giant shortcut that loops through a bunch of things and you are trying to, normally you could just use a quick look, which is down here, to preview the contents. Or wait, quick look is actually not in this menu. It's a document thing for some reason. Like here you could also say quick look 52, but there's no cancel button here. So I do like to use show alert for that same reason. But also it does tend to flatten it into text, so it doesn't work for images and things like that. But that's a good question. Okay, back into scripting. Oop. Where'd you go? Oh yeah, notifications. Show notification can actually take rich media if you do an attachment. So that's kind of fun. I would love for shortcuts to add an open URL action to this, or parameter to this, just somewhere in here. If I could place a link in there and then when I run it, it gives me the option to like have a button here to do something, that is what would be killer. That's what push cuts can do. Push cut. I feel like I always say push cuts. But that's really nice. Part of also what's confusing is that the notification itself is just the text and then the title's below it, but the title is the part that's going to be at the top. So you can have like a fancier, let me just see. Oh, these are not going to show any of those previews, so that's not going to work. Nope. Okay. Well, I'll show you another time. I don't want to go back and set that up, but that's a great way to send yourself notifications. I use this when I log shortcuts to my website. It will pull, I do a whole fancy scraping thing, but then it basically lets me know once each one is done, it drops it a notification, because otherwise it could mess up and I don't know what's happening, or I don't know at what point it messed up, so I just leave myself notifications as a reference. Okay, let's keep going. Vibrate device is also nice just to, on your phone when you tap something and you can have a nonverbal confirmation that something happened. This is actually, I think it went viral on TikTok to play a sound when you charge your phone and like have your own little charging notification, which I thought was cool. Like once again, the teens know much better than us. Ooh, here's from Rosemary's book. She said you could do a repeat with 0 and put any actions that you want to skip while you're debugging. Oh yeah, that's a pretty solid method. I don't necessarily do that as much. I feel like I would get confused. I try to avoid breaking the flow, although it's honestly, Rosemary's probably better at it than me because she is an actual developer and knows how to debug things. So maybe I should practice that with her. I'll write that down after this, but that was a good one. Okay. Jeff's got a good one. I would love to know how you handle your newsletter. Yes, this is something I was going to do it after this, but I think I'm going to save it maybe for another stream. I have my podcast. I have got my newsletter. I've got videos, all of these things that I do want to just kind of drop onto my blog and publish more regularly. I think I even did a stream on the podcast one specifically because I pulled from the podcast RSS feed. But I think at some point, Twit changed the way that they format the pages, and then my regular expression broke, and I basically was like, I can't figure this out right now, and so I was just doing it manually / not doing it. And then, I guess you're just talking about the newsletter itself. I was thinking of the blog post for the newsletter, but at least right now I'm building it in Craft, and then, yeah, it's really not shortcuts based yet. They're all using shortcuts, and I'm starting to integrate the Craft ones, but actually formatting it isn't there yet. But I will say John just in Mac Stories Weekly was sharing this one. Shortcuts just doesn't show the cancel button. This Craft export, he had a way of scraping the markdown and turning it, or the rich text that they export and turning it into markdown. So that was pretty handy. Definitely check that out. That was just like 2 days ago. So yeah, that's the main first set of actions. I guess also it's worth noting just to use the if action for if you're using vibrate device and you do have an iPad to like filter out using here, let me just show you again. I don't need to explain it. This isn't a podcast. So if you have vibrate device, you want to go back and use devices, get device name, and then we'll jump into control flow here in a second, but I'll just show you the if one again. If device name contains iPad. Also, if you change your device, it might not work. Just do nothing. Or I'll switch it to does not contain iPad, then vibrate it. Oops. And then just deleting the otherwise. Settle. See? There we go. You can just delete the otherwise, and then this will just do nothing on this iPad basically. But I guess it'll pass out the text of the iPad. Maybe I should do nothing. It's pretty much the same thing. But yeah, if you ran this on the iPhone, it would vibrate. On the iPad, it wouldn't. Part of the problem is that it errors out because it can't vibrate, which is shortcuts should just know and not do that. And then I wouldn't have to put this in. So maybe there's another request. This is just turning into a bug report request hotline. All right. So in the latest newsletter, I was talking about these list ones because I do think this stuff is helpful to use, especially if you're using those get actions. But I think once you go from there, items are too complicated, dictionaries and files. I don't even use this one most of the time. The math stuff is good on its own, but it's not really, it is just kind of doing scripting at a certain point. We already did notifications. That's just leaving comments. That's more math. This is all pretty specific stuff. And these you don't even need to use half the time because of magic variables. So I figured at that point, you need to know what lists are, because a lot of times what happens is people are trying to operate with multiple pieces of information, and you need to do something with that. Jeff, sorry, I just saw your comments about that iPad or the craft export shortcut was in the latest Club Mac Stories newsletter. So it's not one of mine. But if you're not signed up, I think it's only $50 a year. So it's definitely awesome. They've been making shortcuts like for me lately, which I love. I'm all for that. It's like, please help me do my work better, Federico, because we all got to collaborate on this stuff. That's why I want to do these streams with you guys, is I want to know you folks. Sorry, don't want to be unnecessarily gendered. Let's just all figure this out together and get further along. Knowing, Jeff, that you need the newsletter thing is like a good, newsletters are so relevant to everybody. I always forget that. I always am focused on my YouTube stuff, and that's not always the most helpful. So, okay, back to lists. Part of it is, what always gets confusing is the difference between choose from list and choose from menu, because choose from list, they're all choosing, and it visually looks the same once you have information in here. Like this, 1, 2, let's get rid of this, 1, 2. Pretty much the exact same thing in practice. And I will also just tell you a quick story that I literally did not understand this until I worked at Workflow. So I was even like a pro Workflow user, and then I was sitting next to Ari and was like asking him how it worked. So if you get confused by this, it's totally okay, because that's just how it goes. But the difference is partially in the clue of where they're located, because choose from menu is about controlling the flow. Like I want to say, are you going to go left or right? And then depending on left or right, you do different things. Choose from list, on the other hand, is just like I have a list of options. iPhone, iPad, and Mac, and I want to pick between one of them and assign something that value, or like pass it along later. So if you are like getting a list of notes, you do the find notes action. You would just pass that in to choose from list, and you could pick from those options. If you pass that to choose from menu, it just doesn't even do anything. It would try to have you do different options based off how you want to act on that. I'm going to have to, this will all turn into I wrote some of it in here too, and I'm going to have to go do a whole like 30-minute session just on lists because it's kind of odd. Let me pull back. I think I said in here, one of the reasons you don't necessarily even need to use add to variable is this is a way to create a list over time. And really you can just drop in a variable into the list action and it will figure it out usually too. That's a hidden sort of one that it's not always super obvious. Also, please ask questions because I'm just flying through this, but where'd you go, lists? One that I love is get item from list. This is something that I use to create my whole my podcast blog post thing. Is a way that I'll do it is I'll split URLs. Yeah, I say that in here too on the specific slash. So let's just say this MailChimp one. I'll do this for you live to clarify that a bit more. I'm going to try not to complain too much about those bugs, but you can see it happen to me in real time, get hung up. Okay, so this is, see all these backslashes? Let's say I want to get just that U there. I guess I don't need to do by backslashes. There's a unique character, which is question mark U equals. And then this will generate basically two separate items out of that. So there's the first half of the URL, and then there's the second half of the URL. And then basically with get item from list, I can choose to get that first item, get the second or the last item. I can do an item at index 2 for the second item. If there's more than multiple, you can specify that way. If I just want to randomly get it, I use this to like randomize some of my chores and things like that. And then items in range is like you could get 0 all the way through 10 or just 5 to 7 or something like that. It gets to be pretty esoteric, but I'll show you guys some more in the future of how I use this, especially with URLs is a really good one. But here's a good example. I want to like isolate just this user ID thing because I'm just making up an example, but that's usually how I would do it, is like that is what would populate a different link that deep links into MailChimp or something that I want to create. So I'm going to do again a split text. So I'm going to get that first item, actually get the last item because it was that. I'm going to do split text again. And then I'm going to do, come on, this and ID equals, autocorrect, id. And then I'm going to use get item from list again to just, because here, let me just show you. Oh man. Now I've got that ID part at the beginning and then the end, but I want to just get that first part. So here I'm like splitting it, getting a second chunk, taking that second chunk, splitting that in half, and then getting just the first half. And that's a great, like, you could do this with regular expressions and a lot fancier stuff, but I always say this is like a poor man's regular expression by just splitting it at hard lines that you see are in those links, and then you can kind of work backwards from there to isolate just your data. Slayer Knight, I'll get to the variable thing in just a minute. So that's the basic of lists. That's a way to, at least you can either generate your own list and kind of pick through things. I use that part. Okay, well, I guess I'll work backwards. Choose from list is the way to just isolate down part of that one list. Get item from list is a way to even just get specific sections in that list, or you could split it all up and chop it and then get just one little isolated part. Using list and choose from list, this is a way that I actually create my shortcuts library for some of these. Let me go back here. Okay, wait. I lost track of my link. There we go. Okay. On every shortcut, I have all this extra information. Okay, that link just doesn't work. I have all this extra information that I created custom just to be able to help you guys figure out with my shortcuts. Like in here, this part about the level and the usage of like, oh, this is, I just try to generally categorize like, oh, these are average difficulty shortcuts versus some really complex ones. And this one doesn't ever use ask for input. So you don't need to worry about it in an automation or anything like that. So I basically, as I was going through and working through a list, I had the options for like average, difficult, or easy. And then I would just choose from the list, specify that one value, and then store that in my database later. So it's kind of a way to build your own apps on top by having all of these different options to choose. So, I mean, that's a very fancy way of using the list and choose from list, but it's a way that you can kind of create something out of nothing that's very powerful. And I just realized I skipped ask for input because this is the way, just like you can specify from a pre-built list of information what to choose and pass along. This is a way where you don't even know yet. And you're like, what's the category? I don't know why the keyboard's not appearing. And then once you run the shortcut, it'll pop up that prompt and you can type in your information and pass it into the shortcut. I feel like I'm just flying through some of this variable stuff, so I'm going to maybe double back on some of these in more particular ways, but I do just want to like cover it all for you in one group. So once you, I feel like then there are some other math parts and things, but these do tend to stand alone based off of what you need. And I kind of assume most people aren't going to be doing math in their very basic shortcuts. So we can leave that for more of an advanced class, I'd say. But at least the big thing then to know, once you kind of understand how you can control the device, how you can sort of let yourself know that your shortcuts are being run properly, you know how the network stuff works with it, and then you can pick through some of these lists. The items one are something that I think is valuable, and then also the control flow. But this also starts to get into more advanced stuff, so I'll leave that. Control flow is the same thing. I was showing you choose from menu. These are the ways to have one shortcut work in multiple different ways depending on different conditions, or if that's how you create different conditions. If something is happening, then do this, otherwise do that. You can have fully nested if like I showed you before, so that if this is true and that's true, but not this, then it can work. Although I don't think there's a programming function. Can't even remember what it's called. I think it's if else, or no, that's the same. It's this switch statement where if these are all true except for this one condition sort of thing. But I'm not sure if they just haven't built that or if somehow the visual part of it makes it really confusing, but that's just worth knowing. I think there's a way to do it programmatically too, but it's pretty advanced. So a good way then, once you had all of those lists, maybe you are looking through your notes, is you can repeat through. I do tend to use repeat with each because that basically means there's a known list ahead. It has 7 items in it. I'm going to repeat through it 7 times. It'll just figure that out based off of how many things are being passed into it. Repeat itself is a way that you can have it specify, oh, I just want to do it a certain number of times. And I guess even you could, would this work? Let me test. You technically could set this value based off of the total from something else using a magic variable, but this is just a way to get it quicker. And even in programming, these are loops, for loops, all that. I didn't even know. I just knew in shortcuts, you're working with something, you repeat with it multiple times. So let me show you a good example here. this is a way to basically batch process information, or one of the uses is. So let's say you have 5 notes and you want to go through each of them. You want to repeat with each of them and get some note, the body of the note. You would put this in here. Part of this is confusing. Even this is probably the biggest confusing part about repeating, is you want to be working with these automatically generated variables, not really these. Depending, but most of the time what's happening is each of those notes gets passed into the repeat item, or into the repeat loop, and then what's being passed out of this into this next action should be the repeat item, not all of the notes. Otherwise you'll repeat and act on all of the notes each time, and it doesn't really make sense. So this is like getting each one of those notes works through the repeat item thing. You can do nested repeats, and then there's 2 repeat items and everything. So each of these is probably going to have to be its own video. This is like, maybe you all can tell why I don't have a 5-minute succinct explanation video on how repeats work in shortcuts, because there's all this nuance and level to it that does get beyond an entertaining YouTube video. So it's got to be some sort of course, or fully, I'm basically teaching you programming here, and I'm not actually a professional programmer or anything too. So I got to get some more advice from people like Rose, but I at least, maybe if it helps you feel better, I can do this with these tools. I learned exclusively through shortcuts, and it all makes sense to me at a certain point. That's why I do try to say this is programming, it's scripting. You're just not coding, and I love it, because I don't want to type the stupid curly braces. All of this if conditional else stuff is a giant pain in the butt when you're programming, and the entire thing just doesn't work because you forgot a curly brace. What shortcut stuff can entirely work because you don't understand how it works, but it's still, at least it won't just break randomly. So that's a very quick summary of this type of programming parts. I say continue in shortcuts, exit shortcut, wait, and wait to return are also more relevant when you're working with another action or another app. Continue in shortcuts, I would use this with an if action, basically to determine if there's like a certain size or operation that I need to do from the share sheet. I don't want it to continue there, and so you can move it into the shortcuts app. Also, if you want to make sure at a certain point, like if this value isn't met, just stop right away. You can just exit the shortcut. And you can even, this result thing is used for nested, when a shortcut runs another shortcut, you can exit with a specific value, and then the next shortcut can use that as input. That's also super fancy. The wait one is, people try to use this for timers, and I haven't. This is not something that I'm like almost like patient enough to test, where people will try to make a shortcut that runs in the background for 7,000 seconds in order to have it go for 5 minutes or something, and it usually doesn't work. Like shortcuts wasn't really built for that. And so I try to encourage people, it's like, go for it and figure out what works for you, but iOS tends to kill stuff in the background. I do think, though, the home automations part might be an interesting angle for that, because home automations can run in the background, and they run from the HomePod and everything like that. So if you are doing that, you might be able to have the wait action work for longer than normal. And then wait to return is used for actions that move into other apps. It's like you could have it open Safari for you, and then you go in, copy and paste text out of the field, and then once you go back into shortcuts, then it continue, and you can use like get clipboard to get whatever was on your clipboard. So this is kind of a way to make a shortcut that doesn't actually do everything that you need. It'll open up into another app, you do what you need there, and then you come back and shortcuts can keep going. So that's actually really cool. I don't use it as much though, because that does tend to, sometimes it can break, or it kind of is like a Rube Goldberg thing there, but that stuff is really useful if you need it. Like, I do think there's this whole category of shortcuts that are good enough where it's like, technically, yeah, I would love it to do all this scraping for me, but if it can just put me into the right place, and then once I'm done, move me back into the flow, like that's a pretty great way to use your phone and get something done that would be a pain in the butt on your phone, but it can just get you right there, and then you can move on. So I want to make a whole video about those types because that's cool. All right. So I'd say let's really quick. I'm going to leave the math and measurement stuff for another one. That does get pretty specific. I will say though, calculate expression is just cool. This is latest in shortcuts. You can just do like simple math. This is like, your teachers don't want you to know about this. You can just calculate a full math expression in there if you just type it. Let's do 21 times 8. Boom. So that's pretty neat. And you used to have to like do a nesting thing that like plus this and then divide it by that and use pretty linear math, which was great for relearning how the heck math works. But I also didn't want to do that. So if I don't have to, that's fine too. So I think I'm going to quickly cover those variable parts. I will say to run script over SSH, this runs a program on your computer. So if you are a programmer, or there's other people who've created these, look up the iPad story mixed automation one from Mac Stories, and Federico has links to, come on, shortcuts, Jesus. Okay, oh, there it goes twice. Nowhere near it. There we go. You can have it tap into your computer and run like a turn on the screen and stuff like that. So there's lots of fun there. And the last little bit is the ability, some of these are more advanced too, or specific apps. I'm not going to cover that, but the variable part, really this was how originally when you used shortcuts and workflow, you had to declare every single variable. And so this was a whole feature that was added when right before we got acquired. That was like the major thing, because you would have to come in here, and if you wanted to use, here, let me do show note. These actions didn't even exist at the time, but see how that fills out with the notes from before? Shortcuts didn't used to do this, and workflow itself, the original one, didn't used to do this. You'd have to come in and say set variable. Like this is what programmers do, and it blows my mind that you have to do this much work of just like, these are my notes. And then you would come in here and say, I need to get the notes out of it. And even that picker is just the only way before. Now with shortcuts, clear it. This magic variable thing happens automatically. So every single action will automatically declare itself as a magic variable. It's magically created for you all the time. So you don't need to specify it with set variable. You can, if you want to say like, these are my work notes, and then from here, it'll use that term work notes, and you can specify and be a little bit more specific. I will also say though, you can just rename these as work notes, and then the magic variable itself captures that name. I'd say the major part that's better about using set variable than select magic variable is just the fact that it's right there. Like if you have a 400 step action shortcut, you don't want to sit here and scroll through back all of them and find that magic variable and tap it. It like the main thing right now is that this will show up. That manually declared variable will show up in this menu. I personally think shortcuts should add the ability to automatically show any renamed variables in this same variable picker. And then it would basically only be, it's kind of odd, but like you can declare it manually if you want, even to just visually show yourself what's happening. I think that's one thing that gets confusing for people. It's like, those are my work notes, but if I just do this, it starts to become less clear to new users what's going on, just because they're all just connected automatically. But even then, maybe it's less clear to you when I have to manually declare it and then later come back with all of these extra actions, and it just physically makes the shortcut way longer. So that's the set variable part there. It is basically used to be the main way to do variables, and they made a better one, and it's just still there because why take it away? Here, Jeff, when I use workflow without magic variables, it helped me understand automation and programming. But boy, am I glad it is a thing now. Yeah, exactly. Like, it is helpful to declare and move through each step. Maybe I should do a series where I create the same shortcut with magic variables and without magic variables, because that's probably helpful. Because then it's like, this is the same thing. This does the same process, and it's just how you design it. There is like a how you design your shortcuts kind of not like etiquette, but just I have a certain way that I do it. Also, maybe somebody else chooses to use variables just because they find it easier. So I'd say the thing that gets confusing with add to variable, I don't even really use it a lot. I use it the most when I'm repeating through something, because there's different, it's even like, it's it's programming logic that makes my brain hurt, where I'm like, I know that this works, but there's a way where when you're in the variable, when you're repeating through something, you can just add it to the variable and create a stack, but the repeat results are already kind of a stack. So sometimes if you're trying to create two variables within a repeat thing, you might need to do it with add to variable once, add to a different variable later on, and then at the end, you can get both of those separate, just however they ended up working out. I'll have to do a little bit more on that, because I think I use it so infrequently that it's not even something that I have. Like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but that is a good question. I think this is why the scripting section has so much in it. We didn't even get to some of all this X callback URL stuff, and URL encoding is usually more specific. I will show you guys a couple. I do like get my shortcuts. Choose from list. Come on. Come on. Run shortcut. This just runs all your shortcuts. Oh God, I just realized I have so many. That was a terrible idea. If you have way less, it's one shortcut that runs all your shortcuts. So if you're ever having trouble figuring out how to use all of yours, just stick this one on the home screen and then boom, you're done. Okay, that was a terrible idea. That's gonna break down quickly. Okay, I feel like that took a little bit longer than I was expecting, and so I think I might save the automation, because it does have a little bit of logic that I'm not totally sure I'm gonna be able to like figure out live. And so I wanted that to be part of it. So why don't I just save that and we can do it all together a separate time, because I think I might start doing more shorter of these streams. Let me like, you're all watching now. Let me know what you think, because I want to be able to have more like pure Q&A or like some sort of focused version of that. I want to have just more video out there for you to learn from, and it doesn't have to always be a big event that I want people to show up for or something like that too. I just want to put it out there, and part of what's useful for these is I don't have to think about the YouTube algorithm in the same way. Like, a lot of times I'm trying to produce a YouTube video, but I can just record myself doing this stuff, and a whole Twitch versus YouTube streaming strategy is all stuff I'm not going to think about. I'm just going to make shortcuts with y'all. So I hope you enjoy it, because it's really helpful for me to get this out, to have more examples, understand where maybe I don't even have good examples for add to variables. So I got to come up with more before I make that video. But this is awesome. I love teaching you all this stuff directly, and especially getting questions and working on some clever ideas. I think that one with Daniel doing in between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. thing, that is actually, now I'm thinking about it, is very close to how the playlist one will work. So I'm excited that these are going to start building off of each other too. So hopefully you all are tracking it, and let me know for sure. I think specific actions in the scripting category, I'll go back through this for sure and see what you were asking about, but let me know which ones you need to work on, because we can all build that out together and get some good examples for everybody else to learn too. So I think I'll leave it open for a couple minutes if anybody else has any questions, but otherwise I do want to cut it down so I'm not giving you all 3-hour streams to watch every single time. But thanks for tuning in. This has been fun. I really appreciate everybody hanging out Saturday morning stuff. I'm gonna write all. I'm gonna keep track of you that you're asking these questions, so I know. Cause I mean, it's only a couple this time, but still, that's fun. I like helping specific people too. And Jeff, let's do it for sure. I did see. I hope you don't mind. I'm just gonna say this. I did see your blog post about the whole. How do you make I don't know, just like who you're being on writing and stuff like that. And I sympathize with your feelings. So I appreciate you writing that. And I'm down to help you build some shortcuts too. Let's do it. Daniel, okay, cool. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun. And yeah, Jeff has been cool too. Amber, nice to see you again. I'm glad I made that. I didn't forget, like I said, that I was going to forget the Slayer thing versus your actual name. So that's fun. All right, folks, I will cut it out here, but it was nice seeing you, and I will catch you in the next stream.